So happy to that Landon reached out for me just to say a couple words. If anyone doesn't know, again, my name is Ryan Schlegel. My coworker is Leah Smith. It's a two-person event. That's who does the permitting for Salt Lake City. And we do special events, which a lot of you have seen, like the Arts Festival and huge things like that. But we also do plenty of community events. I know I've worked with Marmalade and just to name one, but many different community councils to put on events, local small events. The threshold is 50 people. Once you're more than 50 people, you should have a special event to use Salt Lake City public property. So we do anything from the biggest events we have in the city to the smallest. So if you want to do something, doesn't matter on size, our office can at least point you in the right direction. We also handle the demonstration permits. So if you're going to want to do a protest, demonstration, anything like that using public property, we would also help you. So feel free to reach out about that. And the other two being film. So if any of you decide that you want to start a film career, photography career, and want to use Salt Lake City public property for that, we help with that as well. And then the last one is block parties, which a lot of you might be interested in. Block parties are for just residential. It's residential only on small streets. You can't be a business. Community council, probably we want to keep it to just residential, but we could talk about that if you have questions about block parties. I put the link in the chat to our website that has the 4 options for the permits applications, as well as some more information, our contact phone numbers, emails. We're available Monday through Friday to ask, always feel free to reach out, even if you don't know if you need to apply. We'd rather have you feel like you have a place to go to try to get some answers on putting on an event in our community and to point you in the right direction. One thing I want to start off with is that you don't need a permit for private property. So if you're using some sort of school, even though that is slightly public, if you have any sort of private property that you're putting on an event, you don't need to talk to us, just to work with the property owner. We're for if you want to use the roadway, the sidewalk, public park. There are a couple other weird city properties that some of you know about, like Fleet Block and all these weird. There's a parking lot across from the Smiths Ballpark that we're talking about activating more. But if it's a city property, again, we're happy to at least explore those options of it being used for some sort of event. In my world, and today, unless people have other questions that we can talk about, and I'm happy to answer any of them, I'll focus on special event permits. A special event permit, like I mentioned earlier, any group of 50 or more gathering on public property for an event should have a permit. Again, there are plenty of gray areas, and I'll be happy to take questions that people might have. But to use, let's say, Liberty Park for an event that you want to do for the community, you would need to give yourself at least 30 days. We can't help you under 30 days. It's in the ordinance. We have to stick to the 30-day minimum. But really, you can apply up to 364 days in advance. And depending on the size of the event, you might want to give yourself as much time as possible to plan something out. Really depends on the logistics of what you want to do. But if you give us more than a month, most of the time we can find a way to make it work if the space is available and you complete all the things that you need to, which I'll go over in a little bit. So 30 days minimum, give yourself up to a year you can apply. We manage all the parks, so we will know the schedule of parks. We can look into that. We can look into different parks that might be more suitable. Your neighborhood parks are always a possibility if it can fit what you're looking to use. There aren't so many parks that have electricity and water and bathrooms. So depending on which park you choose, you might want to we can look at different parks depending on your needs. As you might imagine, it's a lot easier if you have water and electricity for an event already there than having to haul it in. Plus, it saves some money as well. And we have that list of parks that have all those amenities, so we can look into that for you when you're exploring ideas. Really, we don't really tell you what to do. We just want to help you put it on. You decide what vendors you want to have there. You decide, what activities. I always tell people, shoot for what your dream idea of this event will be, and then we'll bring you back to reality with the logistics of it. So always feel free to come to us with any ideas, and we try to figure it out from there. Um, Once you've kind of identified where you want to have it, and again, we can plenty of questions. I'm just trying to give you a brief overlook of what it would look like. You've picked the park. It's a Google form online. Like I sent the link. It's very easy to fill out. Takes very short amount of time. The one thing we do need is a map. So whatever you want to do, and this includes block parties and demonstrations, is we always need a map. It always helps us get a visual of what you're planning to do, wanting to do, and then we can pass it to the right people to make sure that'll work for all the city people in the city. Once you've identified that you want to put on an event, like I said, or go to the link, Google form. It costs $119 for a special event permit. Okay. Now, if you want to do something reoccurring, like our friends in Liberty Park, they do the farmers market. You can do a reoccurring event in one permit. It would only cost you $119 for our fee, and it can reoccur up to 3 months. So one permit is good for a reoccurring event within a 3-month time frame. So anyone who wants to do something like every Friday at their local park, we can explore those ideas. There are going to be, depending on size and what you want to do, more fees on top of that. It depends on what you want to do. If you just want to gather and hang out and have one food truck and just kind of, I don't know, have a game or something for your community, probably not going to cost that much more beyond $119, maybe $66 for the park. But if you want to scale things up, close a road, serve alcohol, try to get 500 plus people. These are all things that, as you can imagine, will cost more money. So I usually say the more people you're looking to have and the more logistics, that's when the costs will go up. Certainly with alcohol, certainly when you want to close a road. Those things, if you're planning to do a bigger scale event, we definitely encourage it and want to help you, but give yourself more like 3 months, especially if it's your first time. As a lot of you might have experienced going through city entities, you never know what might pop up and how long it might take to get a response from someone. Time is really going to be your friend when you're putting on an event for the first time. So give yourself as much time as possible. After you pay after you submit the application, we make sure there's no big red flags. We put it in, send you a link to pay. And that's important because once you pay, that locks in at least the date and the location that we've identified for you. From there, we let the city entities, what you call the ERC, Event Review Committee, which is made up of people you would imagine, the Parks Department, Police Department, Fire Department, some outside of the city, like the Health Department, and all those entities. They review it, and then we put together a checklist for you, which you then work on to complete and get a final permit. That's kind of the normal. There's just a real quick brief of how our process works. It works pretty much the same for the other permits we do. Block party's a lot easier and doesn't cost any money. But again, it's limited just to residential. Probably the big question a lot of you are wondering right now is about what you're going to do for the season of 2021 when it comes to COVID and all that. Well, as a lot of you have probably read in the news, that the state is loosening up a lot of those restrictions. And the way it works, basically, as you can imagine, a lot of you probably are dorks about this kind of stuff, and I love it. It's just how city and local and governments work. We're really bounded by the state, at least according to the city attorneys that we work with. We don't have a health department. The county does. So we don't have the authority to say what's great and what's not great for the health of the community necessarily, because that's what the health department's for. If we had one, we could make more of those decisions. But we have to go off of the county guidelines. And as they are right now, and I do stress right now, as of this morning, the 14th of April, is that you do need to have masks for events. Okay. So no matter what the event you're doing, everyone's required to wear events. And whoever takes on the event organizer position of filing permits and requesting these things, that entity, either you or your community council, but whoever's name is on there, you're responsible for that. And the reason I want to stress that is that, hopefully nothing will go wrong at your event. But if the health department or someone is not liking how it's going and there's an issue, you're the person responsible. So it's something to take seriously in the age of COVID, is that if you want to put on something, I'm all for it, but it is, it's your responsibility to make sure people are wearing masks and doing what they need to. Those restrictions are loosening up, of course, as we've hopefully have good news coming with vaccines and people taking them. But it's something that you do need to kind of make sure that you're taking seriously moving forward, because the health department is going to hold people, the event organizer, responsible. But masks are required. And the other thing is the social distancing thing has gone down. So they were saying masks are required and everyone has to be 6 feet apart. Well, they're starting to say that if everyone's wearing their mask, they can be closer. So this gives you an option to have more people at your event, which was kind of one of the biggest things that we saw in the decline of events, is that it's just not worth it financially for people to put on events if they can't have people there. But now that's starting to loosen up, and you can start to have more people in a tighter confinement while wearing masks. As of today, they are still requiring, whenever you serve food and have alcohol, that people can't walk around with it. They have to get their drink, get their food, find a spot to sit down that is 6 feet apart from another group and table, and eat it there. So when you do have food, you do have drink, that will be an element of it. If you don't have those things, people can wander around with their masks on and not have to worry about social distancing as well. Now, as you all are kind of seeing in the news, event organizers do have the ability to restrict events to what they want it to be. If you want it a little bit more restrictive, you have the ability to do that, because you're the one pulling this permit. This isn't necessarily, you have abilities as the event organizer for that space. You don't have to treat it like you're a local entity, according to our permit rules. So you can be more restrictive if you want to. In what I've learned, and probably everyone else has, is that this stuff changes all the time. With the state mask mandate going away last Saturday, the health department continuously scrambles to try to make sure they're up to date with what the state law is, to make sure they're enforcing it correctly. So these are the rules today. But as you watch the news, if it goes in a positive direction, you can anticipate things will loosen up, and you won't have to be necessarily, masks might not have to be a thing. Or if you watch the news and you see it's unfortunately not going well, imagine that it'll get more restrictive. And unfortunately, in this kind of unpredictable time, we are accepting applications. We want to move forward. I think that most things can happen, but we can't 100%, of course, guarantee what it'll look like in a couple months. Hopefully it's much, much better. But that's something to keep in mind as you plan out your events. Try to imagine that you might have to be a little bit more restrictive if the restrictions go that way. But I think we're a little bit more positive than we were for a long time now. I think it's going in the right direction. So those are kind of the current restrictions when it comes to COVID for events. We're accepting applications. We're receiving a lot of them. We're working through them. And so I think in whatever happens, there will be an event season, as long as it doesn't go horribly wrong. But it looks very positive right now to have a great event season. And I think you can do it safely if you follow the rules of the health department. So I think if you're kind of on the fence of what you want to do, if it's a smaller community event, I think there's a safe way to do it that can provide a benefit to your community and without harming them. So I think that it's something you should look at. Anyway, I blabbered enough. If there's questions, I know that was a lot of information, but we are here. Please reach out to us. But of course, if you have any questions here today, happy to answer.
Oh, I'm sure there's got to be questions.
Oh, yeah.
Anybody who's looking to have events this year, who's looking to pick back up where they left off, or who's looking to try something new? Anybody? Any stories?
Over here with I'm with Jordan Meadows.
Hi.
Hi. We're actually planning on doing at least a hybrid community council meeting next month. So, and my apologies, I was at a work meeting and I came in a little late. So if I understood correctly, we would be able to potentially send a petition for a permit for a specific location through your organization.
Yeah, so I work for Salt Lake City, and so in Salt Lake City, if it wasn't clear, we permit just for public property. So if you have a park you want to go to, a road you want to close down, all that, you would go through us, and we would help you get a permit as long as we have 30 days. That's the big thing. So yeah, was there a particular spot you were thinking about?
We hadn't narrowed it down yet, but now
Fair
that
enough.
we know that this venue is a lot more feasible than we were thinking, we're definitely going to like crank down on it quickly.
Great. Yeah, no, and again, I sent a link in the chat with our website. It has our phone number, has our email. For me, it's a lot easier to just give me a call. But the email goes to both me and, like I said, Leah Smith, who's in my office. So we work together on all these event permits.
Hey, Ryan, are the big events happening this year?
Yes, Landon, they are
Good.
happening in a, but I wouldn't say you're expect to show back up to what you normally would expect. To give you a brief rundown of what we call kind of like the major events that we have, I'll just pick a few. If you have other questions, I can answer them. The Pride this year is happening over its normal weekend, the first weekend of June, but it'll look a lot different. There won't be the actual festival at Washington Square grounds, but they are doing kind of it's a cool idea in the COVID age. It's kind of like a walk-through exhibit. You sign up ahead of time, get your tickets, you show up, and there's only so many who can go in at a time at Washington Square. But they kind of have about exhibits about the LGBTQ community and the history. That's what they're kind of planning to do there. They are going to do a march from, I believe, the Capitol to Liberty Park, or I might be off on that, might be back down to Washington Square. But they are doing a march on the Sunday where they would normally do the parade. So there's no parade this year. And they are also they want to do some sort of, they were initially thinking fireworks. They're planning out. They're not 100% sure, but the Saturday night of the first weekend of June, they're going to do some sort of visual thing for the community to celebrate Pride Month. So they're coming back. Utah Arts Festival, they moved to August. They want to try to actually have more of a time to, their business is built on grab a drink, walk around, look at some art. So to try to see if they could wait till that's more hopefully safe to do, that's why they went with that. So it'll be the last week in August for the Arts Festival. Days of 47, the parade, they want to come back. They want to put on the parade this year. It's going to be interesting. We're figuring out the people who sleep out the night before, how that gets managed this year, but that's the excitement of working in this job. We will figure that out as we get closer, and we're working on that. I've heard that Utah, what is it? The bike race for Utah. I always forget the bike race. What is it? Race Utah, Tour of Utah. There it is. They've been talking about coming back. And then we just have a bunch of smaller community style events, not necessarily community councils, but just a lot of smaller things. And of course, 5Ks, which we do. So yeah, that's kind of the outlook right now. If I miss any, if you have any questions, let me know. Yeah.
Also,
yeah.
Downtown Alliance, they're still doing the farmers market. And I think they're looking to have a larger footprint this year. That's still a little up in the air, but they're also doing open streets again, which is, they are doing that from Memorial Day to Labor Day and having it be every like Thursday, Friday, Saturday, where they're shutting down both sides of Main Street. So that's kind of a new event that came about because of COVID. But now they are going to do it basically for the entire summer.
And of course, this is the wonderful Leah Smith who will help you as well in your permitting journey. So she will be there for your help as well. But anyway, yeah, any other questions?
Yeah, I've got a question about a recurring permit for a park strip. Over on 8th West, there's really wide center median park strips.
Yep.
And I work with the property owner that's adjacent to it, and we're thinking of opening up that area as a place for people to eat. What kind of permitting would be required there?
Well, how many would the road be closed? I mean, getting people across from the property over there, or are you just hoping people cross when appropriate? You know what I mean? Like, are you looking to close the road in between?
No, I'm not looking to close the road.
How many people?
Because there's a crosswalk also adjacent to both properties that could be.
Okay, cool. How many people would you want if it went well? How many people would you want hanging out there on that spot?
Probably not more than 50.
Okay. I mean, here's the deal. I mean, it might be good to explore a permit just because it gets it on the books. There's no surprises when there's things like this. So the Parks Department doesn't show up to mow the lawn and there's all these people eating and they're like, wait, what? Why are there all these people here? Even though if you might not go over 50, it might be good just to do a permit where, hey, the space, the Parks Department, we work with them to let you know that that space is available, that you can be there, that they're not going to turn on the sprinklers. Hopefully they're not going to, decide to chop the grass that day. It's certainly something we can explore with questions like that, where it's a non-typical used space. You never know. Sometimes with the city, when you ask something that's not set in stone, it takes a couple of like, well, should we? I don't know. Like, who's the right person? I think ultimately it could be used. Let's talk. You have my contact. Reach out to me. I'll ask specifically to the Parks Department on what their thoughts on their logistically being a space where you could have that happen. Because with every space, I don't know the ins and outs of all of them, but we could certainly find out for you.
Yeah,
So,
in regards to the recurring nature of the permit, would that be tied to limited days of the week or limited hours of the week?
not necessarily. What we don't permit for and don't like permitting for is a space not being used, right? Because it takes away from potentially other people using it. So if it's Monday through Friday and there is going to be potentially people there using the space, you can do it Monday through Friday for 3 months, and we would permit that. If it's actually being used, and we can use it for an event, you can do it up to every day of the week. We don't like 24-hour permits because, you know what I mean? It's
Yeah, it wouldn't be 24
but
hours.
if it's Monday through Friday from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. or some variant of that, we could certainly do something like that.
Okay, all right, that is good information. Thank you.
Alrighty, good to hear that there's new events coming up and coming as well, even in this time frame, and that the old standards are coming back. So that's great. I know for us in Poplar Grove with our Groove in the Grove, we've decided to bring it back in its old glory. So after taking that year off, but we do, like I mentioned in the chat, we've got usually 1,000+ people, and it's definitely interesting to hear. I hadn't even considered that the seating requirements for food and drink. So we are going to have to keep that in mind and allocate some space and cash to make sure we have enough seating for all that. So
when is Groove in the Grove?
the first Tuesday in August 3rd. I think that's where it falls this year.
So we're planning the Avenue Street Fair in September, so we're going to be watching you closely.
Yeah. And we'll be watching all the ones that come before us too.
Right.
Hoping that we'll achieve some sense of normalcy between now and then. But in the meantime, we've got a plan for everything, right? So, sorry, Ryan, were you going to say something?
I was just going to say, again, like you're mentioning, plan is that you have to separate for eating, but also reach out, because Leah and I, a lot of what we're doing these days is just trying to keep as up to date, like all of you, with the new rules, because they seem to drop and not everyone gets told. So especially this year, as you get closer, if you're going to make a big splash when it comes to having to design, please don't hesitate to reach out, because like this week, I'm already wanting to find out again, has the state let the health department know if there's changes to all this stuff, because it seems to happen all the time. So this year, don't be afraid to reach out as often as you need to see where we're at.
And we're obviously trying our best to keep everyone updated who especially has an application that we're working on. But it's obviously very useful for us to come to meetings like these and kind of bulk inform people, especially answering all of your questions, which we can't necessarily get to over an email.
Yeah. Alrighty. Dorothy, I think you had a question. She can find the mute button. She's almost there. So close.
We believe in you.
There we go.
Okay, so I'm with West Point, and we are doing an event with Joseph and Jordan Meadows on the same date, the 3rd of August, the night out that Poplar Grove is doing it. So and we've done it for a number of years. So there's two flashpoints, I would say, that we had questions about. One is we do have a parade. It's 1.5 miles, 1.25 miles.
Mm-hmm.
And it is from a park or a school, depends on the year, in Jordan Meadows to West Point Park in West Point. And with that, there's two questions. One is, sometimes we have gotten just the map of we've provided the map of the parade, and we have provided the map of West Point. And the Parks Department has wanted us to have somebody come out and actually see the park.
Mhm.
And so part of our question is, that used to be free, and the last time we did it, it was not a free visit.
Mhm.
It's more fun when it's free. And two, the charge for that had gone substantially up. And we
Mhm.
wondered if we also needed to have them visit both parks. The parade starts at 1, do they have to
Right.
visit that one, and then they have to visit the other one? So and then having the police department and the fire department in the past as part of the parade, because that's part of the fun. And it's a water parade, so we squirt each other all the way. So part of our question was whether the fire department, and particularly the police department, is really going to have the capacity
Mm.
to do it, because they haven't usually. It's been a traffic thing. They haven't charged us
Right.
a fee.
Well, these are great questions, Dorothy. It's good to see you. What I would say is when it comes to the on-site meetings, typically for new events, to my understanding, the Parks Department wants to meet with a new event if it's large enough, and that's why they have that setup fee. And to meet you down there for reoccurring things, the way it should be working, and I can reiterate this with them to talk to them about it, is that for reoccurring events, unless there's something big changing, they shouldn't have to really necessarily meet on site. Now, at the end of the day, it's the Parks Department. They have that final say because they are the Parks Department. They manage the parks. If they have a question about it, they need to get that answer to make sure that the park is going to be okay after an event. So I can't control it 100%, but what I can do is try to find out what were their questions to try to save some money for your group by seeing, hey, is there any way we can avoid having an on-site meeting to avoid that fee? Because I know for your tight budget. So we can explore that, talking to the Parks Department and making sure that they get all the answers so you don't have to have an on-site meeting. But at the end of the day, it's their call. When it comes to the parades and the police department, you do bring up a good thing that I want to make sure we kind of talk about now. The department within the police, the squad in the police department that works on events is called Motors. They're the ones on the motorcycles. They are currently at an all-time low of staffing. So they have brought up to me and to our office that, they need to keep an eye on how many events per day, how big, because there's only so much staff. And as you can kind of glean from the news, there's kind of an overall relooking at the police department as a whole. So when it comes to having the amount of officers that have been there in the past, we're trying to figure out how that'll look. For your event, Dorothy, I'll have to look. They have everything that they should be able to cover everything that's happened in the past to the capacity they've done in the past, because they make sure to mark those nights out. So I think you should be okay. But at the same time, we will just need to ask the police department because that is an ongoing changing kind of situation, Dorothy. So sorry to not give you a definitive, but I do think with the parks, we can try to find out a way to avoid having to meet on site, hopefully. And then with the police department, they should be able to cover yours if it's the same time it's normally happened. And we can confirm that with them for the parade.
And sorry, when Ryan says like reoccurring event, he mostly means reoccurring setup. So say one year you only have 2 tents in a park and like that's it. But then the next year you have 10 and a food truck that's going to be on the grass or something else, where the Parks Department needs to say like, hey, here are all of the sprinkler lines. You can't stake, like going through all of the same requirements. So if you have the same event with the same or similar setup, I know we all have to make adjustments due to the food and drink areas, but that is the primary reason why they still require the meet on site, even if like you've done this before.
Yeah, it's a great point.
So does that mean then that this year everything is a new event because
No,
changes due to COVID?
I think like Leah's saying, we know that this year they can adjust with the idea that here's where the seating will be, but just spread out more. that part's not the hard part. The hard part is like, hey, we want to have like 8 food trucks, but last year you only had 2. Where are you going to fit those? Those are the bigger questions that they want figured out. Oh, we're going to have a climbing wall. Okay, well, where are we going to put that? Those are the questions. Separating the seating, that's not a big deal. Moving the seating from where you normally have it to a completely other area might have to require that on-site meeting. And, to meet on site, I'll clarify this, but Leah, I can't remember off the top of my head. Is it less than $100 or it's not?
I think I want to say it's $132, but that also might include general park usage.
Yeah, I think that includes the park use. So about 100 and 130, just the use of the park. The Parks Department has been charging $66 per that day. So if you use it for one day, it's usually $66, and then the on-site meeting would bump it up to about 130. So Leah and I are thinking that I think it's like 80. Yeah, what is that math? Like about $70 if they have to meet on site for that kind of thing.
All righty. You said that the permit wasn't required for any gathering over 50 people. What about a larger gathering? I know that we've had to do special permitting, like with the health department and whatnot, for groups larger than 500. What's required there? Let's plan big. Think big, people.
If you're going over 500, like you just mentioned, that's when it kicks in the mass gathering permit through the health department. And basically what they're doing there is they're making sure you have enough hand washing stations, porta potties, that people are healthy when they come to your event because you have so many people. That all ranges based on the park you decide to use. If a park has a bathroom, if a park has places to wash hands, you don't have to bring all those things in. So the costs go up. That's why I was mentioning that earlier with the more people, because you have to provide more amenities to help people stay safe and sanitary. So if you pick a park that doesn't have anything, you're going to have to budget for more porta potties. You're going to have to budget for hand washing stations as opposed to using a park that has those things. And then the more that your number goes up and how many you want there, you can imagine that whatever park you choose, even if they have a bathroom, it's not going to be enough. So they have a kind of a funny old scale at the health department that like they, the old mathematician one where you rotate, 500 people plus this size equals how many bathrooms and how many hand washing stations. So it really depends on how many you're looking to have, but those will incur more costs, but it's through the health department. The permit, again, you need to have 30 days or they give you a late fee. So if you're looking, the bigger you're looking, that's why I mentioned earlier, give yourself a lot more time and you're going to have to budget a little bit more. Dorothy, Dorothy, I feel it. I saw that hand go up, Dorothy. Yeah. What's up?
Oh, so talk a little bit about the difference between having 500 people at a time at your event and having 1,000 people attend. Because that's how it makes a big difference.
That's right, Dorothy. That's a good point. So what Dorothy's talking, like the health department it's not just once you go over 500, it's 500 people for at least 2 hours. Okay. So if you were looking at your event and you're like, oh, I have 500 people, but it's only for an hour and a half. Now, the health department still, depending on what you're doing, that's a good rule of thumb, but they'll still need to look at it. So just put how many people you think will be there in total, and then they can work with you on what they need all the information they need to know. But typically 500 people for more than 2 hours.
Yeah, that's an excellent point. With our event spread over 3 hours, we managed to, even though we've got 1,000 people total-ish coming and going, it was only the last couple of years that we've had to bump it up to the mass gathering permit requirement. Before that, it was spread out, just few enough people over the duration that we managed to skate under that. So yeah, that's a very good point.
And I would just say, one thing, there's always going to be the thresholds of when things are required and not. But if you are going to have a lot of people and you might not have to get a mass gathering, I do think for the sheer enjoyment of the people attending your event, having a bathroom would be a positive. So if you can budget it out, maybe just for the overall experience.
Dennis?
Yes.
Yeah. When you have a mass gathering permit, were you required to have a paramedic on site?
Yes.
That's great, Dorothy.
That in my mind is the one expense that bathrooms you need. You can pay for that. You need that.
Right.
paramedic on site is a little bit.
Gold
Yeah.
Cross Ambulance is based on the west side, and they volunteered. They donated the services for us.
Yeah, and that's a good point because once you go over 500, a part of that mass gathering, they need to look at the medical. And our local fire department in Salt Lake City does the same requirement once you're over 500
Yep.
to make sure everyone's safe.
Some people, oh, I was going to say some people do try and be sneaky and put 499 people on their applications. The health department can require a mass gathering permit, like even if you put 10 people down, but if you're doing something absolutely
Right.
wild. So yeah, just to keep that in mind.
We appreciate the cleverness of it all, but they have been around for a little bit.
484 or less. Let's see. Alcohol. Some of us like to imbibe. What does it take? What special requirements are there for? Landon's got both hands up.
Not surprising from that man. Yes, here's the deal. You can have alcohol at events, but we do live in the state of Utah, so those requirements are going to be a little bit more time and labor inducive. Once you want to have alcohol, we can do that. But I was mentioning earlier, you want to give yourself time. You shouldn't even think about having alcohol unless you at least have 45 days. And even then you're screaming for a lot of pain. Because once you want to have alcohol, you have to have three things. You have to have the local consent from our business licensing department. You have to have the DABC permit, which is the big one. And then there's actually a third one called an alcohol concession agreement. And that is the real estate services department of the city of Salt Lake giving you permission to sell alcohol on public property. And you basically enter into a lease agreement with the city where they're giving you that chunk of property for as what you pay for, and you can sell alcohol there. So it's 3 permits and they are long. There's background checks involved. I don't want to scare people off from doing it because there's plenty of people who do it and do it every year. It will take some time, and it will take calling and pushing and making sure it happens. Most of the time, it does. It's twofold because it can really increase the ability to sell tickets, to have money for next year's event. It's a real way to make money, to generate money for your event, but it does come with a lot more work. So a lot of people find that they'll try to attach themselves to an existing business. I know that for things like at the Fisher Mansion, they work with Fisher Brewery. They have a liquor, you can try to partner with different bars or brew pubs to see if they can help offset some of those costs and requirements, because they are a lot. But 45 days minimum, I would give yourself three months.
Agreed. It was very cumbersome, but not extraordinarily difficult.
The first time, right? Like that was.
Yes and
how
no.
was it? Yeah, okay.
Because our event falls on the first Tuesday in August, we actually ran into, and Ryan sees this coming.
Yeah.
We ran into last year, that 45-day window did not include the fact that Pioneer Day fell on Wednesday.
Yeah.
So the city or the state took the Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday off, and the city or the state, the other entity, took the Wednesday, Thursday, Friday off. Could not communicate with them.
Yep.
By the time everybody came back the following Monday and we're like, hey, we have all the paperwork, it's right here, they said, nope, it was due yesterday. So be very careful. And the state and the DABC does not have any wiggle room at all in that.
That's exactly why we say give yourself as much time, because the stuff you don't think about. We don't think about it. I mean, it's stuff where it's like, wait, what? I didn't even know that. So time, if you can give yourself, especially the first year.
Yeah. I will say that we've been doing now Groove in the Grove for 10 years. This will be our 10th year. And in just the last couple of years, the permit process has become much more streamlined, much more simple and clear on getting through the whole thing. Ryan and Leah have it set up right now, so it's actually fairly simple to run through the process, get all the different permissions that are required from each of the different departments and all their specialties. So it's actually pretty clear. It may seem daunting at first, but is actually not that difficult, and they're certainly ready and willing to assist every step of the way. So I really appreciate the help you guys have given us in the past. What about it, everybody? Are we thinking that events are the way to go for your community moving forward?
And I just want to say really quickly, I have noticed a trend, and I was kind of touched about this earlier. You may want to put on a block party, but you may not actually be needing to apply for a block party, because again, block parties are designed for, hey, my neighbors on my small street, non-arterial street is what we call it, want to hang out together and barbecue and just have a great old time. Sure, we'll have friends come by from who don't live on the street, but if a community wants to put on a big thing but call it a block party, you should do a special event. So if you have questions about that, call us. Big key, block parties are for residential use. So remember that when moving forward.
So that is how we've positioned Groove in the Grove is a neighborhood-wide block party. So we do the whole special event process.
Yep.
We have, however, discussed in the past the possibility of nurturing actual block parties to increase the neighborliness and togetherness of each individual street, to try to include those block faces with each other's lives and as well as within the greater community. So I'm a big fan of that distinction, and love the idea of being able to do that.
And block parties are free. All you have to pay for is the barricades, which I know is not free, but the city doesn't charge you anything. We just require that you have them. And during COVID, we tried actually promoting it a little bit, didn't get out there as much as we would like, but it's a great way to social distance and hang out with your neighbors. So you have to close down the road. So again, if you're looking to do that, we definitely encourage it as well.
One idea that I've been pushing is that if the community councils have any type of money and they want to foster block parties, like either buy your own barricades or develop like a relationship with a barricade company, and kind of sponsor that cost if you can. Yet again, if you can't, totally fine, but that is definitely the best way to encourage block parties.
Yeah, because then it's absolutely free. If the community council has its own barricades, now distributing those out, how many you buy, who gets them.
So
you can see why we haven't gone down that path.
Are you saying there are specific requirements for what constitutes a barricade?
Yes, and one of the things you do when you get a block party is you work with the transportation department, and they will let you know it's the standard. There's the list of road closure barricades that the state guidelines, UDOT guidelines, and it's like a T1 something or other barricade that you see everywhere. But the transportation department tells you when you get a block party exactly the type you need. And like Leah's mentioning, if a community council wants to get into that world of getting its own barricades, they are the group that would tell you what's the best ones to purchase or to try to figure out.
Is there a limit on how many blocks can be attached to a block party?
That's right, Dave. There is a limit. It is in the ordinance. A block party can only go from one intersection to another. So if you want to close down multiple roads, everybody has to get their own permit. And we also check whoever applies better have an address on the road they're applying for, because that's one way we make sure that people are like, it's funny you live in West Jordan, but you're applying for a road in Salt Lake City. So you have, even if you don't live on that road, but you want to help your friend, have the friend who lives on that road apply, because that's what we go off of to make sure that they do live on that road. Because I imagine a lot of you wouldn't like someone else from a different neighborhood shutting down your road to have a block party in front of your house.
I just have surrounding block parties around Ryan's house all the time.
It's a constant thing I have to deal with.
No, but just something that you can keep in mind is that on our block party applications, we have an option for an alternate applicant. And so say this one person is interested in having a block party on the street, and if you have like a community council liaison or someone who is your know-all person about block parties, they can be the alternate. And so we can send all of the information to both of you.
Absolutely.
Excellent. All righty. Anybody else? Any questions, concerns, thoughts, suggestions? Chirp. All righty. In that case, Ryan and Leah, you're certainly welcome to stick around for a few more minutes, but we've got about 10 more minutes here that I wanted to have I got a little discussion topic that I'm curious on some feedback from other communities. Wondering because we host our event, Groove in the Grove, at the Pioneer Police Precinct. Closed down 700 South as well. Nice wide street, gives us plenty of space, and using the entire campus of the police department. However, in light of recent events over the course of the last year and a half, wondering, just looking for feedback on continuing to host it at the police precinct. I recognize this is kind of a deep discussion, and apologize for dropping right into this with very little precursor. But just curious if any other communities have any thoughts on the topic. And go.
Dorothy has her hand raised.
Oh, that's something else.
Oh, that was something else? Okay, never mind, Dorothy.
And it certainly, if no one's comfortable discussing this right now, I understand that, that's for sure. Was just curious. We had thought, we certainly want to be considerate of everyone's perspectives, but also felt that it was good to have a positive interaction with police. So far we're looking at continuing in that location, but open to options, and just wanted to get as many different viewpoints as possible on that, if anyone had anything.
I'll say something. I
Sure.
think it's a good idea because it places community residents and police in a different context than something that's a lot less adversarial. And I think it's a benefit for the community. And I think it's a benefit for everybody involved.
And I agree. And certainly in our community, being primarily a very, the most diverse neighborhood in the city, frankly, it's one opportunity where we people of color can outnumber the people in uniform. Let's see. Sarah says in the comments here that I know many people we work with have become very apprehensive about attending events near police property. Yeah, and that's exactly what we're concerned about. So I just want to make sure that we're putting enough weight on those types of feelings. Sarah, do you have anything else to add to that? Who are you working with? Can you give me any context?
Yeah, so I am the board chair with Disabled Rights Action Committee. So we basically are a community that serves the disabled population here in Utah. And we have a number of people that have had confrontations with police officers, disabled folks, people that might be autistic or on the spectrum. And their interactions have been particularly problematic with police at times. And so we've joined on to a lot of this police reform. We have been working with the police with different factions to try to open the dialogue. But we do know that our own members have expressed concern. 2 years ago, we held our Americans with Disabilities event at the Public Safety Building. The city had offered that to help us get in there. And this year, we don't feel that that's a safe option for our community. It was already a little borderline 2 years ago, but yes, we do feel that a number of our people have some apprehension about proximity to police property.
Yeah, thank you very much for sharing that.
Dennis, is Groove in the Grove, remind me, is it a part of Night Out Against Crime, or is that different?
Yes, it is. We rebranded it, but yes, it is our annual Night Out Against Crime event. That's why the first Tuesday in August. That's why it was initially hosted on Pioneer Police Precinct, because at the time it made perfect sense. This was 10 years ago. So yeah, trying to balance sensitivity to that apprehension that Sarah's talking about, which I completely understand and extremely concerned about, personally, as well as for others in the community. But also balancing that with, the the reality that we've got 10 years in on this location, and to change it would constitute a pretty significant investment as well. But that may very well prove necessary.
Dennis, I think there are ways to reach out and kind of try to bridge that divide and make it seem more all-inclusive. If it's got that length of history and if it is directly related to crime. We've found as we've been working with different police groups that, they are more open to the term police reform, and they are aware that there is a public image problem. So by trying to address the fact that in your advertising that you are aware of these issues, but you are ensuring that this is going to be a safe space for all, that could help get around that.
Excellent. I appreciate that distinction, definitely. Dorothy?
Yeah. So, one of the things that you bring up here is that because it is a night out against crime and it's always the first Tuesday of August, we have tried one year to do our event at a different date. And we thought that we were actually helping the city to do that, to spread out the impact on the motor squad and on other groups and the police and that. And it turned out that it had the exact opposite effect. The police department was really not happy with us. Can Ryan or Leah tell us why that is? Because there are a lot of advantages if we were not on the same date with Groove in the Grove.
I did not know that the police, they had never mentioned to me they were upset about it. I can certainly ask them and find out.
I did talk to them about it, about that type of scenario, and specifically that because Dorothy was trying to not compete with our event, ours being on the same day. And it was simply because of financials, because they're paying, because it's Night Out Against Crime, the National Night Out Against Crime, they are already paying every squad to be on overtime that day. So they wanted to get it all taken care of, all the community events, rather than having to pay then. Now you're talking about paying all those different squads for 2 days and doubling that cost. So yeah, it was just financial issues, was my understanding.
Yeah, and that's good. Yeah, that makes total sense now. The thing about with police right now, as kind of a part about your bigger conversation anyway, Dennis, but police in general are going to be the idea of finances, and that will be brought up all the time, I feel like, moving forward with the police department. It's been the theme moving forward this year. So I can ask them. I don't think it should be something that should restrict you from moving to a different date if you really want to, if that's what needs to happen. So, but I could talk to them and try to find out if there's a particular thing.
No, I don't think it was no restriction on Dorothy's event. It was simply that police might not be available that day to the level that she was looking for a Night Out Against Crime event.
Ryan, ask them if they have a national grant to pay the overtime, because that's what I suspect is going on.
I'll definitely look into it, Dorothy. Okay, and I'll reach out to you.
Excellent, thank you. All righty. Got a little deep there for this early in the morning, but anyone else, anything else? Any other comments, concerns, perspectives, kudos? Okay. Here's hoping everyone is only drinking coffee in their mugs and not already imbibing, but if you are, so be it. Who am I to judge? All righty. Here we are at 9:57. I think I'm going to call it. Thank you very much, everyone, for attending. We will try and spread the word to other community councils. Today was our first day on a new schedule because we have in the past been on Thursday mornings. Thursday mornings are just really busy for me, so we swapped it to Wednesday this time around. And based on our attendance today, we need to send out some reminders of that next month, but we will do so. But do please remind everyone too that you just talked to, because I know that we all talk to multiple people's in this arena. Haley did make a comment that micro grants are open. Haley, would you mind explaining or expanding on that statement? This is the perfect crowd, I think, to know exactly what these micro grants are for and how they can be applied in their communities?
Sure. I'm hoping Jamie's still on the call because that is her project. Jamie, are you there?
Here.
I am. Hi, everyone. I sent out an email last week about
Judy, mute.
opportunity. Yeah, I sent that out last week. We had done these in the past, but this year we are kind of looking for applications surrounding our goals for this year. And those three main goals are communicating with your neighborhood, building more representation and building the number of people that come to your community councils. And then finally, emergence in a post-COVID world, hopefully, fingers crossed. And so we're really looking for creative applications. I think if you can make the argument that your project idea serves one of those three purposes, we are definitely open to it. The due date is May 7th at 5 p.m. So you have a little bit of time to get those together. It will be a totally online application process through Salesforce. And we are accepting applications for $50 to $1,500. Yeah, if you have any questions, you can send me an email. I can put my email address in the chat. And if you'd like to do more kind of thinking and brainstorming, you can also do that with your specific community liaison. So Ava, Josh, or Tim, or myself.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Jamie. I think that honestly helps all of us because we all need to encourage more people in our community to participate, whether pre or post COVID world. And in light of our immediately prior discussion, I think I actually like the idea of using that funding to help bring across the messages that Sarah pointed out, that being clear on those perspectives and awareness of those feelings, that so hopefully we can make it a safe space for everyone. Cool. Then anyone else, anything else? Are we good? We'll see you next month. Same Wednesday time. Jamie did put her contact info in the chat box if anybody has any questions there. And otherwise, thank you very much for attending. Feel free to reach out at any time and let us know if there's any issues, whatever your concerns are on, what we need answered to be able to better help serve our communities. Thank you much.
Thank you.